Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful day. And it's a beautiful day because we are back here in 2025 and we're back with WOR. PC Tier 2 specifically. You may notice it's a different face. Joining me in the commentary box this evening, and we are joined by a very friendly face indeed. It's Gareth Davies, aka Water Zero. How are you doing, my friend? Welcome to Tier 2.
I'm very well, thank you very much. Tappy or Ben, whichever one you prefer to be called. I probably should have asked that before, but it's great to be in Tier 2. I think I covered the British Grand Prix when you were unfortunately away as well. So it's nice to see some friendly faces in the chat and also in the racing seats as well. So looking forward to this one. Some really great drivers.
Yeah, I've got some top tier drivers out there tonight. We're going to be seeing them really bring in their A game. We had a little bit of a break, and as we quickly check on the calendar, it's our final quartet of races to round off season 19. We are coming back to China here tonight, but then you have a quadruple header to finish this season off. So of course, we have round 7 with a championship hanging in the potential balance, although, as we'll later come to see, there are some more attuned to the championship than others. But of course, we have Canada, Austria, and then finishing it with Sao Paulo. I've got to say, pretty stacked calendars has been so far, and pretty exciting races we've had. 6 in, 4 to go. Things aren't letting up here.
No, it's not. It's going to be... I mean, well, I say it's not letting up. I mean, you look at just the way it's going. The three really fast tracks to finish the season. I'm really looking forward. Well, from a fan point of view, I'm really looking forward to Canada, Austria, and Sao Paulo. But we got China first.
Yeah, China's one that doesn't really get a lot of screen time in terms of racing, but luckily the league racing team has got a little bit of love. 3.4 miles, 16 turns, and 2 DRS zones. 1 out of turn 13, that iconic banked right-hander into the back straights, then a massive hairpin. Jumping on the brakes, you're going to see a major amount of overtakes as you open up into Sector 3, and then the start-finish straight. Of course, you've got that early complex, turns 1 through 4, so twisty, so easy to get it wrong in terms of your lines, and then that final major braking zone where we see a lot of cars fire it down the inside. We're going to have plenty of action around those two areas, but how do you rate the track?
I think China is very much an underrated track. A lot of people, I feel like they don't like it, and I'm not sure why. It's, you know what, it's one of the best ones on the calendar that people forget about. It's not up there with like Silverstone or Sao Paulo, but some of the, it's got a bit of everything. It's got one hell of a long straight and some really tight twisty bits as well, just to really set the need for concentration, really.
Well, concentration is going to be of utmost importance. Before we look at the standings, we take a bit of a reflection on the previous race, the Hungarian Grand Prix, and it was Liam Stevens who ended up taking top honours. The reserve stepping in, making a stand and leaving his mark with Riot Sprogis just 0.3 of a second behind. Yannick Schmidt a couple of seconds away, and of course a strong contender alongside the likes of Leo Lund, Luca Rapasa, Zalan Bieda, Keanu Lito, Sixten Linhart, Larry Tulki, and then Rez Imtiaz finishing off your top 10, which, if we have got the maps right, that leaves Yannick Schmidt a few points away from Lito in third place, but Jan Halliday continues to dominate the championship. 101 points, 41 points more than the next closest competitor. That is quite a gap to overcome, and especially when you look at how hard the rest of the field is fighting, it makes you wonder how Halliday's feeling heading into these final 4 rounds.
Yeah, it must be pretty... I'm trying to think of the best words to describe it. Pretty comfortable. It's quite daunting for everyone else. Yannick is a very quick driver, but to be 41 points behind, especially after Jan missed round 6, it's pressure on for everyone else, and I think it's quite... Jan just needs to make sure he's done what he's done for the whole season, which is finish on the podium.
Yeah, I think consistency is the name of the game at this point, and getting those regular points finishes is what's going to reel you in to your opponents and start to bring the competition ever closer together. Of course, this is where we also bounce things over to you in the chat watching at home. So of course, thank you as always for joining us. But if you are looking for a particular driver to come out on top tonight, do let us know in the live chat. As always, we've got quite a lot of strong drivers who are going to be making their mark today. Of course, Halliday is going to be returning. You have lots of different races. We're not going to be seeing Reyes Imtiaz, who is a driver who I know has got some speed from seeing him around the scene. It'll be interesting to see things without him here. Then we have the likes of Justin Ayres, Linus Donovan also not being able to make it, with Igor Piseki and Riyad Spriggs, another driver who was on the tentative side of things, but I don't know if we are actually seeing him tonight. We will, of course, have to find out when we go trackside, which hopefully won't be too long from now, but we are just taking a little bit of extra time to make sure that the lobby is all good, that everything is set up correctly, things like collisions are turned off, and everyone is in who needs to be in. I know that we got you sort of jumping in for just around here, and I know last time you were in here it was the British Grand Prix, which I'm sure the championship landscape was a little bit different, but I got to ask, Gareth, is there any particular driver that you are looking out for here tonight?
I mean, there's always the names, isn't there? You've got Luca Rapassa, and I'm just trying to think. JST's obviously done well. Jan Halliday is a brilliant driver. And you know what? I kind of looking at Danny Van Ruyten. I'm expecting him to do something tonight. I'm not sure what I'm expecting him to do. It was very similar to the British Grand Prix. He was kind of out of nowhere out of it, and then he's finished on the podium. But he's the main one I'm going to be looking for. But Luca Rapassa, I've known from the console side of things. He's a very, very quick driver. Someone that I will definitely keep an eye out for as well. Keaton Lutt, another great driver. You know what? I could go through the whole list here, but they're really, really good, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all panned down. Just a quick stat as well. The first time we did PC Tier 2 in China, Yannick won.
Okay, so a bit of a sort of reputation to defend in that case, and he's got a bit of work to do here, because it's a pretty tight competition, all things considered. And we are going to go trackside in just a moment, but something that is proving to be very interesting to me, and I'm sure will be very interesting to you and the viewers at home, is that we are trackside here for round 7 quali, and it's raining. We've got a wet quali. Everyone's on the inters by default, by the looks of things. What are the drivers going to do here?
It's completely thrown my strategy and thought what these guys would do out the window. They're going to be pushing a different way now, especially in qualifying. Setups. How many people practice China in the wet? No. Well, how many people practice wet over dry? Some people might take a little bit longer to get used to the track, and braking points change slightly, and your concentration levels, especially if the rain gets harder, which we've seen in the past in other races, it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think the big thing when it comes to wet weather running is, well, you form a bit of a dry line over time, and that can, of course, help your case. But then the challenge then shifts from not necessarily keeping your grip, because by that point you've found your braking zones, you've found your braking points, you've got a generally good handle on the car, and in qualifying you can afford to sort of adjust things in terms of your setup just a little bit to be a bit more compliant. No, the main thing is going to be your thermal management. Those wet weather tires, the inters, and although you don't see the extreme wets, they do follow the same principle. They're designed to be displacing water, and the temperature that comes from the displacement of the water, the cooling down of the rubber, they have a much lower operating window. So as these drivers push and they get too close to the dry weather temperatures, they're going to start experiencing some major grip loss. So they have to occasionally come off of the dry line just to get those tires cooled down.
Definitely. you know, we're not sure if it's going to go in the race either, whether the weather's there. But down that back straight, we could see, especially towards the end of qualifying, people move a little bit more to the right, couldn't we?
Yeah, I could definitely see drivers experimenting with some of their lines, just trying to find a bit of space that can optimize their runs, optimize their laps. And we're going to see the first driver out here. It's going to be Larry Tulkey. He is going to be the car that is set to set the pace, as you still have 3 cars who have remained in the pits, soon to be 2, as Zorzo has just made his way out, heading into turn 1. But here we go. Tulkey keeping it narrow, keeping it fast, trying to stay nice and gripped up before being able to throw it back to the left side through the other apex. You can see he's really having to slow down, nurse the car. These low speeds, it's so dangerous to get on the throttle.
It definitely is. And, you know, Jan is deciding to do a little bit of drifting on the set of softs. He is absolutely all over the place on those. And it looks like Larry is also struggling with just general grip level as a whole. So this could be, I don't want to say it, but maybe the wrong tyre. Maybe they need to be looking at a set of wets, or it could be that the water just hasn't displaced enough for the inters yet.
I think the extreme wets are certainly a heavy-handed play. I don't expect many, if any, drivers to be going on the extreme wets, unless they literally just want to create a dry line as fast as possible. But then that would benefit their team or their team's rivals, so that wouldn't necessarily be viable. Tilke, though, is keeping a cool head despite some of the slip and despite some of the sliding angle that he's carried through a couple of these corners. Out turn 13 now, heading down the back straight, easily pushing into 8th gear and bumping up to 200 mile an hour plus before jumping on the brakes. It's just after the 100-meter board, so very aggressive timing when it comes to the brakes. Throws the car through to the apex, but manages to get it working and manages to get that car rotated round. First time on the boards, Larry Tulkey, FVR, and it's going to be a 40.347. Who's going to be the challengers? Yannick Schmidt with a 40.9. Not getting that initial pace, but his teammate, Ariana Grande, is going to be a 39.927. I do love when the drivers have a bit of fun with the names.
Oh, goodness me. Hopefully they weren't singing at the time as well. But that's a lovely 0.4 of a second gap between the two of them there. Luca Rapassa struggling through Sector 2, which is not ideal. But we've seen many a time, I say many a time, we've seen from a few of the drivers that they struggle, but still setting in a relatively good lap time. Yannick is, you know, his time is over 9/10 of a second. It's a full second away from Ariana Grande there. So Luca Rapassa, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they will handle it. But I suppose it's the first throw of the dice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first throw of the dice, but Ariana Grande stands on top, continues to hold that top spot. Can't wait for their debut single, 7 wins. But looking to the rest of the field, it's going to be a bit of a toss-up as more drivers are making their way through now. Quintino just crossed the line with a .198. Another driver to look out for, but as we see more of them filing their way through, that's going to be one of the Ferraris that crossed the line. I believe that's Hitala, who was opening up and starting to set a full call lap. We're on board as well with Scott Holmes in the Alpine right now, as a few more racers are looking to push and make the most of the opportunity that they have afforded to them. So P12 for the Alpine, as they have another car trailing behind. That is going to be Zorzo, and just a couple of hundredths of a second away. That leaves 3 cars who have yet to put a time on the boards. We'll see if that changes soon, but look, Halliday and Hitala all have yet to set time. For Halliday in particular, I'm not sure what to make of that when you consider they are in the defensive position. They need to get this qualifying solid and locked in.
What I noticed in the Silverstone races, Jan likes to have a little bit of a relaxing first run or two, and then that's when he really hits it, as Keegan not able to set a competitive lap time in comparison to the others. I think Jan is just in a phase of, right, I've had my fun, this is where I'm going to start putting a little bit of the hammer down.
Yeah, well, he's got a bit of a gap, a bit of a safety net compared to the rest of the field, but that's by no means an excuse to rest on his laurels. We'll see he's taken a bit of a casual stroll, as we do see Kidner get a time down. It's a 40.8, so only good enough for P16. and then we'll see what the rest of the field does to improve, as Hitalo is the only other driver to get a 39, and it's 2 milliseconds away from Tope, aka Grande. But we'll see what the other Aston can do, and the current championship leader, Jan Halliday, a lot of pressure is on the shoulders of the driver in that AMR 24.
I think I quite I've touched on it, I should say. I think Jan likes a little. I think he likes that pressure. He likes the pressure of having to fight until the very end, as he's invalidated there. He's really struggled a little bit. Where some drivers don't like that last minute problems and whatever, and they don't want to be in right at the end. But Jan, I think he thrives on it.
And of course, it speaks to a driver's mindset. If they want to be sort of fighting to the bitter end, some people do thrive under that pressure, as you say. They love to have that driving force behind them. They love to see what they can do under the conditions set. As we see more drivers making their way through. That's Presican, 0.970. Yannick Schmidt got a 39.996, just a bit further ahead. Leo Lund, however, is going to be eclipsing the current holder for pole. It's going to be a 0.629, 3/10 of a second clear. Best sector 3 of the track by a significant margin. Really nailed that final part of the course, and that was a big factor in them securing pole for the time being. But that's not going to be unchallenged, as you have more drivers making their way through as we speak. Case in point, we're on board with Rapasa coming up to the line. Will there be an improvement from the Ferrari? Couple of shuffles underneath. Rapasa comes to the line. It is a 7th position with a 0.121.
Not bad from Luca. He's probably wanting to do a little bit more than that. He's just been knocked back down, I think, by Keanu there. As Danny Van Ruyten, I think, could be on a very, very good lap time. I think he's 7/10 up on his time, which might be enough to put him into second place.
If he keeps that up, that would put him in second place with a theoretical 39.8. So he just needs to hold this together. All comes down to turn 14. He needs to hold his nerve, pick the perfect braking point. He's really put everything into that run. They're very aggressive on the apex. Looks nice and clean. Jumping on the throttle, straightening up as soon as possible. Van Ruyten could have this, but he's going into the pits. He's not happy with the lap. He's gone back in.
I think there must have been a mistake at the 11, 12, 13 point, which he feels he knocked himself down a little bit, because that looked rapid, and I'm not sure. Well, the first bit of it, and the timing screen said it was even quicker. So obviously there was something he wasn't happy with.
Yeah, well, there's clearly more room in the tank for him there. There's got more to give. And as the drivers, you can see them sort of weaving about, controlling the temps. They still feel that they have more work to do. So where the drivers will land, only time will tell. 7.5 minutes left on the clock. We have Halliday coming to the line. It's a 0.377. He's gone and done it. And that first invalidated lap was a bit of a red herring in the end, as he's come through. He's sailed to the line, and 3/10 has been chopped off of the top end yet again. So some drivers may be rethinking their stance here, but Ariana Grande coming up to the line now. Is there going to be a meaningful challenge? We know they're absolute rockets in the wet, and they've just proved that here. 0.002. That time is absolutely plummeting, and the track is still wet, by the way, folks. You see this kind of time degradation when the track's shifting to dry, but no, the rain is still coming down, and the track is still very much a wet course.
Yeah, that was... it's becoming rather special by some of these guys now. Tamas throws themselves up into second place. That's a good lap time there as well. They probably lost a little bit of time on the last corner by the back end stepping out. So, there might be even more time to find there. But it does feel like a second run on the intermediate tyres is a better option for some of these drivers.
The potential is certainly there. And the theoretical best time is the 38.9. So we had Tope, who absolutely dominated sectors 1 and 2, and then Larry Tolkey actually holds the best sector 3 time with a 43.274. So definitely potential there for a lot of drivers around this course to improve, but so far, theoretical best is barely scraping into the 38s. Is anyone going to reach that hallowed? Because remember, that's just combined of best current sectors on track, and 38.8! That has just been thoroughly eclipsed. Quintino has found his mojo, he's on course, and he's hunting for that pole.
That is a wonderful lap time. Real, real special. But it just shows that maybe the track is getting a little bit better. It doesn't look as heavy rain as it was earlier on, does it? It's a little bit nicer for these guys to maybe drive around in now. Yeah,
maybe a little bit more compliant, and certainly a bit easier to control the cars, as that's Caden Luke with a 39.349, making his way into 5th place. Many drivers now actually jumping into the pits here. I wonder if we're going to see a change in approach, given the fact that by this point, despite the rain still falling, the dry line has certainly formed. The track is going to become a lot more usable with a range of surface on the course. Though everyone still remains firm on the intermediates because the rain, as we said, is still coming down. We will have seen plenty of drivers experiment, and now it's time to really push to see what's possible.
Yeah, there's still plenty of... plenty of 4 minutes 20 doesn't sound like a lot of time to set a lap time, but if they start leaving the pits now, they've got an option of two push laps or 2 install laps, really to get themselves used to the new dry line. But it just seems like everyone's now throwing themselves into the pit lane and being a bit cautious, maybe, I think, because there's a lot of there is a lot of pressure, isn't it? You want to be as high up as you can in this qualifying session.
Yeah, well, that really is the key, isn't it? Everyone wants to get that optimal timing to get out on track when they can maximize their options. They might not necessarily go for the full push laps, but certainly a second install lap might be a viable move, considering the inters are a bit more hard wearing. You don't see that kind of grip fall off compared to a qualifying on the slick runners. You may see a bit of fuel burning going on, which is a strategy that you don't necessarily see as much as you used to in previous games.
No, and that's a very good point, actually. But, drivers like to throw up new ideas, but are actually just rehashed from previous seasons. And, a fuel burn might be what some of these drivers will do.
We'll have to, of course, wait and see, because it all depends on how aggressive they push on the first install lap, whether they'll really have time. We have 3 minutes on the clock right now. Balint Lekes is going to be leading the charge as far as things go for this final potential stint. Everyone remains in the pits for the most part, and we will see who is planning what here. As now, we make our way to the line. And will we see a full push coming in from Lekes? We do see him going for a bit more burn. He's not shifting up. He is maxing out the revs on that engine. He's certainly going to be putting that ICU through a little bit of stress. I don't think the engineering department will thank him for that, but all in the pursuit of ultimate speed.
Definitely. And these guys will do it for the best they can, as I think Scott Holmes is going for it as well. Going for maybe a second install lap, because he seems to be a little bit off the pace here, but it's becoming a little bit of a traffic jam, and it's a good thing collisions are off, because there's a lot of it's just a full gaggle of cars.
There's going to be a full gaggle of cars, but in the background, seemingly under the radar of everyone, Keanu Lito did go for the full core lap and got a 6.44. So this is certainly going to be heating up. The pressure is on. The stove is lit. The fire is burning underneath the heels of the rest of the field. And it's time to see who is going to rise to that challenge. Many of them are now going to be looking around at their competitors, and even with collisions off, they want to remove distractions from themselves. They want to space themselves out, get out of the other driver's proximity, and find their own pocket of the course to be able to work with. But we will be seeing a swathe of cars making their way up to the line. Tamas Kokeni is going to be leading for this final setup here and the final runs of the qualifying session. 50 seconds till the checkered flag falls. I worry for some at the back of the queue. Are they going to be able to make it? Because if they're burning and cooking some tires, they might just fall shy of the checkered flag. We've seen it happen in the past. But here we go. Kokeni on the run now.
Yeah, it's got shades of Monza, sorry, hasn't it? All over it. No one wants to be the first driver through, but it's not because of slipstream on this one. It's just because they might have left it a little bit late. And I'm trying to figure out which Mercedes driver that is. It's the teammate of Tamas, so it won't be a problem for them. But up on their first sector time, which is good, a good sign for Tamas.
Everyone's made it through, and the checkered flag has fallen. So Biega retired out of the session to the pits with a 0.527. They are going to be last here in qualifying. 0.644 is going to be a tough time to beat, but the second Mercedes of Tamas Kokeni is leading the charge on this next set of runs, and you can see how aggressive they are pushing as we come out to the exit of the second sector. It's 4/10 up on a previous. A good finish here could put them into second place or even into P1 if they can keep this upward momentum. But like so many laps, it all comes down to turn 14. Nail the biting point, ride the car through turn 14, straighten up, get on that throttle, and make your way to that flag. Here we go, jumping on the brakes just to the 100-meter boards, minimal lockups. Nicely done, nice and tight to the apex there. And let's see what the racers are going to bring in timing-wise as they're now filing their way through. Tamas Kokeni, first of the set, 0.526. They're going to break the Mercedes teammate, Balint Lekas, into fourth. That's going to be Ian Halliday with a 0.506. Going to go one better, 0.510 from Leo Lund. It's a massive rush to get everyone through. Ariana Grande, 0.307. That's going to be a top 8 pole if this stands. Halliday's been undone, but Repassa, 0.174, is going to take it that little step further as the final waves of everyone comes through now. And in the end, Luca Repassa takes a last swing, and it's a home run with qualifying in the bag, pole position in the pocket for the Ferrari, and you can see the margins up on screen.
That is, well, it's ridiculously close until you get to Luca and Ariana Grande, where they kind of just set a little bit of a bar above. Larry and Keanu there, both exactly the same qualifying lap time. That it just shows how quick and how competitive these guys are. I think Marcel must have had an issue. And looking in the chat, it says game crash for Marcel. That's unfortunate for them, but it's ridiculous, isn't it?
That is insane. I mean, just it is a testament of always to the drivers and the level of competition that we are experiencing here. It's the fact that not just tenths, not just hundredths, but sometimes single milliseconds can separate you from positions. And it could be the case between a 4th row and a 5th row start, or it could be a case between a podium start and get knocked out of that proximity. We've seen it in times past. Drivers 3, 4 been separated by less than 100th of a second. So it is insane, the margins that are at play here. But we are going to take a short break here in the commentary box while we get ourselves ready for the full core race. Of course, join us back in a second. When we come back, we'll be discussing qualifying, what our thoughts are, and of course get into the race itself. But don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with you after a short message. Welcome back, folks, and just a reminder of the stakes that are at play. And of course, after that electric qualifying, we saw a last-minute swing from Luca Rapassa to take things home to pole position, and he is 7th in the championship, so there very much is going to be a high amount of pressure for him to do well here, capitalize on that early pole, and really catapult himself up the order in terms of points. He could get himself all the way into a podium spot if the luck smiles upon him, but of course that remains to be seen. We have the likes of Tope, aka Ariana Grande, for the purposes of this round. We've known them to be an absolute wet weather weapon, and that much has been proven here with Halliday, championship leader, going down into a podium spot, so still second row, but certainly going to have their work cut out for them this time.
Definitely. The only thing, though, you know, Yannick is his closest rival, and if Jan finishes ahead of Yannick, does that, you know, with 3 rounds remaining, how does that affect mentally to Yannick? You know, Yannick, there's a lot of pressure on Yannick. I think Yannick's down in 13th place.
Yeah, Yannick's probably a driver who's really feeling it on their shoulders right now. They've got a lot that they need to accomplish in these last 4 rounds. And that does weigh on a driver. Even the most mentally resilient of drivers, they do feel the strain. And when you get yourself caught up in a situation like this one, where you have a quite large points difference, when you consider the competition and the level, quite a large points difference to overcome, it can sometimes affect your confidence. It can go one of 2 ways, I think. It can either drive him to go even faster, drive him to go even harder, or it can maybe start to stymie some of his confidence, and he may not be as willing to push forward because he might think it's too much. So we'll have to, of course, wait and see how that manifests. Maybe we'll see that manifest more, in particular when it comes to race trim, because certain drivers perform better in quali, some perform better in the race. That much has been proven time and time again. But we've got quite a shake-up potentially for this championship order.
Yeah, there's well, I'm just looking at it. It's a couple of drivers from second to Yannick to Danny. Those positions could shake up quite easily. Larry is in 6th, down to anyone really from Diego Zorzo in 14th place. That's a lot of championship positions to be moved around, and you know, Jan, he's got the biggest margin of them all, really, hasn't he? And he's sitting pretty at the top, and we've spoken plenty around there. But a question I'll ask you, Ben, is if, as it seems likely, Jan is to win this title, who's going to finish second? Because it's really close there as well.
Yeah, I think that is the closer fight ultimately, and that is where we're going to see a lot of the focus shift depending on how these next 2 rounds go, I'd say. But if Jan does wrap up this title, who would take second? Because that really is a tough one. On the one hand, you've got the likes of Yannick, who knows how to pull in those consistent points and knows how to clearly bring it home. But the other thing to consider is you do have those flashes of brilliance from the rest of the field. I mean, you look at Larry Tilke, you look at Luca Rapassa, the performances that they brought today in quali, they brought their absolute A game, and it shows that they have the pace to compete to the top. So for every chance that I can say, yeah, those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, they're basically in their own bubble. They'll duke out a little bit, but it's a fairly clean cut. There's all the opportunity for others to strike out and really go against the grain in that sense. So while it is hard to call, because the cards are in Yannick's favor for the time being, I'm not going to count out any of the drivers that are currently on this board.
Yeah, definitely not. I completely agree with you on that, because it's, you know, as much of a good driver Yannick is, he's struggling in the wet today, and he's got to fight through the field, and fighting through this field is not an easy task.
Yeah, well, that is certainly going to be a fight, and I think that term is an understatement. Of course, we don't know what the weather's going to be like. We just had an intermediate qualifying, but China is a track that does not relent. 16 corners and a hefty amount of braking zones, which can challenge the bravery, but it can also give you opportunities to gain a ton of time. I look to some of the drivers' lines on turn 14 in particular. A good 14 can be the difference between a pole position and getting dropped down to 10th. It was sometimes literally a case of 0.2 of a second being made in that corner alone, depending on your exit.
And that is huge, isn't it? You know, you think, you know, as F1 fans and F1 drivers and F1 esports, whatever you want to say, 1 second seems like an awful long time. Oh, actually, awful short time, but until you reach this sport, and then when you say someone a second, it's mental. It still shocks me to this day how it is, but I want to ask a quick question, Ben, because it's I don't often get to do the PC side of things, and it's always a little bit it's fun to do it, but who is, you know, you've got these PC tier 1 drivers, and a lot of these drivers can fit into that tier 1. Do you think that's a fair comment to say?
Absolutely. We see it. We do see it. A lot of drivers do get a chance to reserve or infill for tier 1. So it's not out of the realms of reality, and in fact it's something that has come to pass a few times before. I see drivers in this field, in this roster, who are fighting toe to toe with the best of them, and then simultaneously going into reserve on tier 1 on a couple of weekends. We saw that earlier in the season when we had the coinciding of the different championships, and we have seen it in the past as well. So we have seen that, and I think it's definitely a fair comment to make that a lot of the drivers in this field, in this cohort, definitely have what it takes to go sort of neck and neck with some of the drivers in that quote-unquote hallowed tier 1. But we are going trackside, so this is where we're going to pass it off, of course, to you in the chat. For those of you who just watched qualifying, who have you got your eyes on? And for those of you who are just joining us, first off, welcome, and let us know who you are going to be rooting for, whether that's a particular team, a particular driver, or if you just want to see a certain amount of sort of racing action and a little bit of an underdog maybe that you've got your eyes on. Of course, any and all angles, we want to see him, we want to hear him, let us know. And with that, we are going to be going trackside in just a moment. But I have to question, is it going to be wet or is it going to be dry? We're about to go trackside and find out. It is going to be, looks to be dry. Nice one. I can stick to my strat book now. Because I didn't have a strat book for the wet. I just thought, you know, it's China and it's gonna be dry. It's gonna be a dry race, and thankfully I was right. I'm prepared.
What do you think? Obviously, it will all depend on safety cars and everything, but you know, pitting laps 15, 16 from a hard start, is that what these guys are gonna do, or do we think the PC tier 2 guys are gonna do something a little bit different?
I think, say, hard medium or medium hard, it pretty much is the optimal strategy 90 to 95% of the time, unless you want to go really aggressive or you have some tracks that are very low wear. Well, we'll see how that manifests in a minute, but it's 4-5 red lights. The track is hot here in Shanghai for round 7 of tier 2, and we are away. Immediately going to be a flying start for the front 2. That's going to be top 8 going immediately on the aggressive on the inside, trying to hold off Rapasa from gaining early dominance of the position. You have Halliday, who's splitting the field, as you see, 2-3 wide, heading through turns 2, 3, 4. There's going to be a little bit of carbon fiber trading blows as the rest of the field are careful cutting and scuffling for positions, but in the midst of it all, you have those top three who are trying to get that early breakaway. It's 2-3 wide in a lot of places. No major casualties as of yet, but you see trading all around this field. Rapasa being displaced down to second and under some serious pressure from the Aston as we make our way through this first lap. Look at everyone go.
Leo and Tamas are having an incredible battle for P4 as well. And there's someone off in the background. That's a Red Bull out of this race. Joel is gone. It's done. That's a VSC.
Yeah, that's a VSC immediately out of the gate, and that's a spin as well. Some major contact looks like it's happening. That's Holmes, Hitala. And they are both going to be peeling off the course, rejoining, maybe with a little bit of damage in tow as well. But VSC has been called an early lap 1 wipeout, and I'm sure there is going to be a little bit of work arriving at the steward's office in due course.
Yeah, they're gonna. I think they're gonna be paid handsome. Well, not that. They're WR are gonna get their money's worth out of them this time, I think. Tamas has let Leo. Well, I'm not sure what's going on between the two of them, but they were letting each other through. I'm trying to cast my mind back on what happened. I saw the Red Bull go off in the background, and then was it Scott and Tony having a coming together?
Yeah, I wonder if there was contact, but it did look like Marquardt just peeled into the inside wall, coming out and into turn 10. So, of course, we won't know until we get the driver's perspective themselves. They might post something in the tier 2 chat, which we'll, of course, reflect on and talk about if we do get the chance to see it. But VSC still ahead, so keep an eye on the deltas. Keep the deltas positive. You know the rules, and so do I. But a couple of position trades where they're just trying to maybe squeeze and edge their opponents out of a position. As we get back to full core racing speed, Rapasa's going to immediately put the pressure on without even a second of hesitation. And Ariana Grande is going to be on the ropes right now.
Yeah, Ariana, they struggle. Well, they pushed off too early from the VSC. I think they were expecting the VSC to end quicker than it did, and allowed Luca to hunt them back down. Tony has pitted, I believe, front wing damage for the other Ferrari driver, because I believe he hit the back end of balance in 16th after the incident. But here comes Luca Rapasa to the inside of the Kick Sauber car, and it's a nice easy move in the end.
Yeah, it's a clean and easy move. Of course, DRS being enabled, utilizing one of the 2 DRS zones on the track, as there's a little bit more trading further back. That is Keanu Lito. Although they do seem to be, or they at least were, ghosted out for a split second, it looked like. So I wonder if there's maybe a bit of an issue going on there, or just a brief technical hiccup. Either way, Rapasa holds the lead. Grande in second, with Jan Halliday chasing the rear in third. It looks to be biding his time potentially, but also, we can see that everyone is on pretty much the same tyre strategy, with the exception of Hitala with his early stop, having to swap out for a little bit of damage.
Onto mediums. It's, well, like we expected, one way or the other, the drivers were pretty much all going to do the same tyre strat, weren't they? So we're probably seeing pit stops around lap 15, 16, and then for those that want to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe pit a little bit earlier, and those who want to go maybe even further aggressive, well, I can't imagine people wanting to go softs at the end, but yeah, that's a possibility as well.
There's certainly a possibility, but we'll see how the cards fall as the race progresses. A little bit of tyre smoke getting kicked up by the competitors as they are just holding a safe distance, but otherwise trying to make sure that they are in a prime position to take a position on the DRS as it activates. That's going to be Leo Lund peeling to the inside there. Tamas Kokani is going to go a little bit defensive, aims to the center of the track. Side by sides, it's going to be Grande and Rapasa. They are going to go for a little bit of a deal there, but that opens a door for some pressure from Jan Halliday. Doesn't turn that into a move, but he's certainly keeping close.
Leo's going to the outside of Tudor Pressor Cam to the turn 1, and well, he's made the move stick before that even has happened. That was all down to everything else, and he's gone up the inside of Tamas as well. He's really trying to get the moves done early doors.
Yeah, wants to get those moves done early while everyone is so condensed up. That's prime time to get your moves in before the track finds an equilibrium and before people start to separate out.
Oh.
A little bit of contact, bumping tires, bumping carbon. It could get dicey here.
Yano got sent into the wall. How he's not out of this race, I'm not sure, but he's got no front left end plate, and that is unfortunate for them, because I think that is Gabriel Quinto as well, having issues. But a little bit of well, elbows are definitely out at the moment.
Elbows are certainly out. I think that's the understatement of the season, because you can see them all just really just trying to bait each other out, going at it. Say Quintino, for whatever reason, having a major issue, getting displaced all the way down into P15 and not really being in a good spot to go for any kind of attacks. We'll see, of course, how he manages to recover that, if he does. But Ariana Grande back into contention. Jan Halliday, though, it's going to be his time to strike, as he's going to go to the inside, take Ripasa while he's not got his guard up. Ripasa does take the position back, however, into turn 14 and 15. There's a bit of diciness happening there, and Van Ruyten is going to head into the pits now. You can see some of the drivers starting to diverge. Second retirement of the session, this time voluntary, as Van Ruyten retires the Williams in the pits.
It's a shame for Danny, but he's decided enough is enough. But we've seen many a time, not only probably in PC tier 2, but also in other tiers as well. Whereas up the inside there, Tudor Pressacan on the Mercedes of Tamas, and Tamas really being pushed out wide and has lost another position, possibly two. But drivers who retire early often regret it because of a late safety car or a late incident, which allows them to pick up points.
We see that's Hatala in the pits and DNFing out as well. So we have 3 cars who are not going to be making it to the line here tonight. And of course, with those who remain, that's just higher probability of scoring points. That could be very meaningful. We can see the AI finishing the job, taking those cars off of the track, and we will probably see a bit of tensions flaring up, but all eyes on track right now. Luca Rapasa is going to go for the strike once again into turn 14. As we've seen time and time again, it's a well-executed overtake, but can it stick? Will there be any retaliation coming from anyone in that top 3? Rapasa seems to hold, and Ariana does go for the DRS, does close the gap, but they don't look to take position. I think it's just a little bit too far for right now.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. There's also, I think Yannick and Diego's also coming to blows at the end of it as well. There's still a lot of action, and this is why I like China, because it shows a lot of action, and I think this is possibly why drivers don't like China, is because there's often an incident or two.
Well, the reality is that for us watching at home, the viewers and the commentators, and then for the drivers, our goals are completely different. Because for a driver, the best race is a quiet race, where you're basically given your own entire space, and you can effectively go into hot lapping mode. No disturbances, full control of the situation, full control over your strategy, no issues. That is a perfect race for a driver. But of course, you split that with what we, the fans, want at home, which is to see these drivers be pitted against each other to fight as the best of the best in the league racing scene. And we will get that as they push each other forward at the same time. So we'll see how that turns into some racing moments here. That is going to be Ariana going for a move. That's going to be Ian Halliday poking his nose to the inside. It's going to make it potentially a 3 wide. Doesn't, again, goes for these moves. He goes alongside the other 2 cars, but he doesn't stick that anywhere further than 3rd place. I wonder, is this just him trying and failing the same move over and over again, or is this more of a strategic play?
I don't know. I think it's a little bit strategic. I think Jan possibly is also struggling a little bit with ERS management right now. Ariana is sitting pretty on 100, and Jan, I think, was just struggling, maybe pushing a bit too hard. Also, maybe just wanting the clear air, because the engines do. It's not as significant as it has done in previous games where the engines overheat, and just behind, I think there's a little bit of an incident between Tamas and Larry, but nothing happening in the end. They're just battling away, good hard battling, and yeah, I think Jan maybe just reminding drivers that he's there, but he's still sitting in a podium position doing a wonderful job. I'm just thinking on Danny Van Ruyten's retirement as well. I mean, that's kind of really thrown him out of a chance for second of the championship.
Yeah, that definitely has thrown him out of contention, especially if the rest of the drivers out on this field and in that championship contention do get some good results out of this one. So we'll see what they do, how well they happen to fall on that standing. But no moves this time coming into turn 14. Everyone remaining fairly steadfast as we head through into lap 8 now. Where will the cards fall for these races? I think looking at this, we're going to see a lot of back and forths, but we're not going to see anyone try and get a major breakaway until we get to the pit window. I think you called it rightly earlier. Around lap 17 is where we may see them start to switch to the medium, but I'd argue some might go even later than that, just to maximize the prime time of a medium.
Yeah, and that's something you need to do. The medium is definitely the better race tyre. Is just having a look at the inside there was Tudor Pressacan on Leo Lund, and it looked like it was going to be a late lunge, but he thought better of it and just hooked behind the Visa Cash App RB car, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, some people might go early, some people might go late. I'm trying to remember what happened in PC Tier 1 with Tom Manley. I know he took pole and took the win, but I can't remember when he pitted.
Well, everyone's going to have a strategy of their own, and part of a good strategy as well is responding to the environment around you. So it's not just about having a quote-unquote optimal strategy, but it's understanding that your strategy can be completely undermined if you come out in a sea of other cars that you have to then fight around. Especially if you're on a fresh set of compounds, you're going to lose any kind of meaningful advantage you would have got just from getting around and into some clean air to use those tires. So it's about responding to the field. It's responding to who leads, responding to who is around you when they choose to go in, and also seeing where you can stretch out a bit of extra pace with the space afforded by your opponent's pitting. That's when you really see a bit of a dynamic field start to come to fruition. But we see Pressacan and Halliday going side by side. Turns 2, 3, 4 now. The Aston is going to be put under a bit of pressure from the McLaren, but Halliday does not budge from that third. It really is like a lead wall here. He can aim forward, he can defend from the back, but he's not budging from that third place, no matter what you throw at him.
No, he is. He's holding on, but I tell you what, it's Tudor Pressacan's race at the moment. He is very much, very racy, very, well, carving. I don't want to say carving through the field because he's only up 4 places, but he's making the moves. Well, he just made a move on Leon Lund into turn 14, and he made it really well, considering everyone else had DRS around him. He's using his tools to his advantage.
I mean, if you want to talk carving through the field, though, there are 2 drivers that stand out on this one. It's Yannick Schmidt and it's JST. They both made up 6 positions, highest gainers in the race thus far. And they have really turned this one around, especially when you look at Yannick Schmidt and what could potentially be on the line for him in this race. Being able to turn a situation like a 13th start into currently sat at P7 and counting as he's closing the gap, working to get on the back of Tilke. It is commendable, and it is a sight to behold as this race is only going to continue to fire up. We see Zalambieta take a couple of position hits, as that's going to be JST, Caden Lute, both filing their way through. Quintino, though, is going to be the 4th retiree. They speed into the pit lane. It hasn't quite gone well for them, and unfortunately, they will not be seeing that checkered flag tonight.
Unfortunate for Gabriel there, as Larry Tilke trying to go around the outside of Leon Lund at turn 6 and ends up having to take evasive action in the end. You mentioned JST, and I know I mentioned earlier that Yannick Schmidt won the first PC Tier 2 at China in season 14. The second winner of China PC Tier 2 was JST. So 2 previous China winners here.
Yep, and 2 drivers with a reputation to uphold. They're going to see to that vision being realised here. As you can see, he's going to be closing a bit of gap to Tulki within a quarter of a second, but everyone just trying to make those forward movements and trying their best to make some good out of this DRS train at the point where we're at in the race. Lap 10 coming into lap 11. Rapasa is going to return to P1, is going to displace Ariana Grande back down into P2 here. A little bit of an extension on the curb there for the Ferrari, but they do still have one final chance. A lot of drivers have got 2 warnings at this stage, and I always find this interesting because it's almost a tell into the philosophy of the drivers. If you're going as a more conservative, safer driver, you keep to your line, then you see that as 3 safety nets for mistakes before you get a penalty. But the more aggressive drivers, and where we see a bit more forward in terms of strategy, is drivers will look at those 3 warnings and they will say, right, I have got 2 extends before I have to start behaving myself and rein it in. 2 chances to gain time before I'm penalised. I always found that interesting.
That is actually a really interesting point, and I'm sure it's something that will be discussed at some point where but yeah, there's definitely 2 types of drivers out there, isn't there? They're the ones that, like you say, the aggressive ones that will go, right, I can use these 2, and the others are like, well, I can use them if I have to, but I prefer not. I prefer to be hedging my bets.
And it also speaks to the drivers in terms of whether they're more conservative or aggressive in their driving style. You can see who's going for the major moves and who is letting the field play itself out. As you can see, for every fight back and forth between Grande and Rapasa, they are pushing each other, and then Halliday is hanging back, letting them fight, not getting too involved, but just egging them on enough to keep the battle going. And I'm sure there will be a time where he does look to commit fully to these attacks. But it also does affect how you perform in the wet, because more aggressive drivers tend to find it harder to adjust from a track that's going dry to wet. They're too close to the limit. That's where you see the rears kick out and they get in a bit of trouble.
Definitely. All great points, as I think Tudor Pressicat's trying to go up the inside of Jan Halliday into turn 6, and has the move been stuck? It looks like he has. They're still side by side as they come through turns 7 and 8, and Jan has had to concede the position because his car nearly tank slapped out there.
Oh, he's certainly losing a bit of that cool, a bit of that collectiveness, as they have been put in a seriously dicey situation. Now, this is dangerous, not just for Halliday, but for Pressicant. Look at that time difference. Barely within the detection zone at this point. If Rapasa and Grande continue to slingshot off of each other, they could leave the rest of the field in the dust, and it could become a 2-horse race.
Part of me doesn't want that, but part of me wants it. It's really weird, isn't it? But they are switching positions again, and Tudor Pressicant is 9/10 of a second behind, but it's all starting to just squeeze back up together a little bit. I think they've managed, or Pressicant's managed to hold station here. Keaton Lutt, I have to say, up 8 positions, and someone that is absolutely on fire. Someone else like Tudor, who's shown their worth tonight.
Yeah, they're bringing the heat, and while we have trained our eyes mostly to the front of the pack, the rest of the field has been just as eventful, as we've seen trades all up and down the course. We can see a couple of drivers now heading into the pits. They're going to be swapping out for a set of mediums. They're going to be going quite early, considering our earlier predictions that we would have seen about lap 17 where they jump onto the medium tyre. But maybe we are seeing drivers who know how to nurse the tyres, who know how to preserve those compounds while still retaining speed. If that is the case, then we are going to be in for some exciting racing indeed.
I was going to mention, with Jan holding back on the front 2, was it a bit of tyre preservation that he was doing, just to, forcing those 2 to fight, but himself being a little bit more conservative and saving the tyres a little bit, but now losing that position. He's now got to go on the aggressive side, but it looks more like Tudor is the one that's going to come through the field and be aggressive. Can we see a Tudor Pressacan win tonight?
Very much could be on the cards, but it all depends on how he plays these next few laps. We're starting to see drivers seriously consider their timings in terms of switching onto the mediums. Maybe the tyre wear is not aggressive or as aggressive as one thought, or maybe it's just a premature move from the back three. We'll be thinking not much to lose here. If we can get a massive undercut, we might be able to make some more positions up on this race. But Halliday is back within contention, as is Pressacan to the back of Ariana Grande. Now we will see these four make a crucial decision within the next lap or so. If they fight, this could put them in quite an interesting spot heading into the pit window. But they also need to consider their teammates. The double stack is very much real, and while the ones in the front do of course get that precedent, that priority, it is still a factor you have to weigh. Luckily, everyone is in different teams in that top 5, but it could very much have been a different story. Imagine how this would have changed up if Rapasa and, say, Pressacan were on the same team. How'd you weigh that up?
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's obviously most people would allow the front driver to take precedent over the pit stop, but it's not something easy. And you're looking at Larry Tolke in 6th place, who's not far behind his teammate Ariana Grande, who's going back for the lead. But is that Tudor Pressacan going for it up the inside as well? It's 3 wide into 14, and that is a move and a half if Tudor Pressacan can hold it off. But here comes Jan Halliday as well. Oh my goodness me.
Wow, okay, that just changed up in a major way. So Pressacan goes to the inside, disrupts Grande and Rapasa in a major fashion, really just setting the aggression high as gone into the pit, so he thought might as well throw a bit of a Hail Mary in there. And then Halliday came in, briefly made it 4 wide, and then cut straight through between first and third to get himself into the lead of the race. So that was a masterclass move, and that is what we talk about when we say capitalize on the situation. He looked at his surroundings, he looked at what was about to go down, and he said, right, this is a great time to strike. Whether it's first or third, I can gain here.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful... there's no words. That was an amazing move there. And it obviously helped with Tudor Pressacan going into the pits as well. But that... picking the bones off the fight of everyone else. And that's, I suppose, I want to say, a move of a champion.
A move of a champion, or at the very least, a champion in the making, as we do see the fight is still very much alive. It's going to be between Rapasa and Grande here as they get very close to the back. Do they close in on an attacking move? Not quite. We do see Yannick Schmidt go on a bit of the aggressive, a little bit of a wobble as they try to jump a bit prematurely onto the accelerator on the go pedal. We can see massive swathe of cars now heading into the pit. Zorzo stays out and inherits the provisional lead of the race. But we can, of course, watch the rest of this field as they're now jumping in for their sets of mediums. Most of the field coming in on lap 16, or most of them on the front side of things. A few drivers remain out on that white wall. Zorzo, Kirkany, and Holmes, along with Marcel Viega. They are all going to be taking a chance. And you can see that there is a massive undercut from Alekis Bieda and Pressacan as they have jumped through that hoop and are now going to be leading this one.
Yeah, as Tudor Pressacan goes up the inside of Zalan Bieda there, and that's very, very tight as Scott Holmes gets out of the way of these guys fighting for position. He's also in the pit. Leon Lund attacked Luca Rapasa to the line and managed to get ahead of him on the pit line, which pushed Luca Rapasa behind, and Luca Rapasa now is behind Yannick Schmidt, which it's mental, all the action that's going on. But Diego's also leading the Grand Prix at the moment. Oh my goodness me, but this has been A rather interesting Chinese Grand Prix so far.
Well, it was a brutal swing there from Leon, but at the end of the day, it's fair game. And until you get to that pit line, you are still technically racing. You just need to make sure you decelerate in time to not get that speeding penalty. That's why you see so many drivers really try and push it. But coming up to turn 14 now, you of course see a bit of trading as Valiant and Tudor are going to be trading blows. Fellow McLarens going to be getting up in each other's grills and really making a fight out of this one. We've got a tale of multiple races at this point. We've got the four lappers, Bieda and Alekes, leading the charge. Presican, Tulki, and Lu are going to be in your next set of drivers, although Presican is going to be putting the elbows firmly out and setting their attack on strong, as they are going to disrupt that status quo. And then you have the one-lappers led by Ariana Grande and Jan Halliday closely following behind. Who will come out on top? 11 laps to go. I think those four-lappers in particular will start to feel a little bit of the pain by the time we get to lap 25.
This is exactly what Tudor needed to do. However, he probably would have wanted Valiant to be a little bit more of a roadblock in the second McLaren there to Larry Tulki and Keaton Lunt and Ariana Grande coming through as well. So this is absolutely incredible. And I still, just to go off topic a little bit, I still can't believe I'm saying Ariana Grande in an F1 race.
I've already made a joke about one of the songs, so I'm not gonna rehash that one. But we're going to be seeing that is top A, by the way. For those who are watching, that is top A. They just like to have a little bit of fun with the display names when we head into some of these races. Keep things interesting. Keep us in the commentary box on our toes. So we see him heading now into 5th place, soon to be 4th, as Tamas Kokani is going to be one of the last hard runners to swap onto a set of new tires. It's going to be the yellow wall, going to be the medium, and Grande is going to be going very aggressive to try and capitalize on the age of those mediums. Get that advantage under your belt while it's fresh, while it's hot, and before things start to equalize and you all start feeling that slow degradation in grip.
Yeah, I don't think Tudor Presican's plan has quite worked how he wanted. He wanted those four, the two drivers on the older laps, mediums, to be a little bit of a roadblock. It just hasn't worked. And the two kick Sauber cars, I tell you what, Larry Tulki has done an amazing job to put himself up into 2nd place at the moment.
What makes you wonder now, with the two teammates in such close proximity, are we going to see a bit of cooperation, or are we going to see a story not too dissimilar to Alekes and Presican, where they were fighting each other and pushing hard for their own benefits? At the end of the day, WOR, you are in a driver's championship first and foremost, so the emphasis definitely is on that. The constructors, as it can be helpful sometimes, it takes a bit more of a back seat, so makes you wonder who is going to play ball or who is going to be going for it. It's like an old game show, Split or Steal. Do you work with the person across from you, or do you take it all for yourself?
And just to add a jeopardy, sometimes if you go for all for yourself, you do come off worse. Both of you go for it, go out, and it becomes such an unfortunate issue for both. We've seen many times where teammates collide, and really the old adage of in F1 you shouldn't be taking the teammate out. It should have, I think, even apply in this Drivers' Championship as well. But Leo learned up the inside of, is that Yannick Schmidt there? Zalan. It's all kicking off between the three of them.
Yeah, these three are certainly going to be pushing each other to the ragged edge. We already saw that a little bit with Bieda's very aggressive defense heading into the opening of the sector. Lund is going to have a bit of an advantage heading out into turns 9 and 10 here. They're going to extend that gap as we end out sector 2. We would say Bieda was very much not a fan of Leo coming in, trying to take that P6. They did fight hard, but in the end, it was a concession that had to be made, as they're now dropping another position, this time to Yannick Schmidt. I think they are starting to see a little bit of that speed loss heading into these later laps. But we see that is going to be two Kick Saubers leading the race. Currently 1-2. Presican being displaced to the third spot of the podium. It's going to be Torquay and Grande who are leading into lap 20.
And something that Ariana or Tope has done really well, that Jan has struggled with, is getting through the field of the drivers on the older and more worn tyres. Yes, it's only by a lap or two, but it really does matter towards the end of the race that you're on those younger tyres. Then it's easier to defend.
Yeah, it's using that early advantage to cut your way through the field and get to that desirable position. That's what makes such a difference, and it's why the pit window, that strategy window, is so important. You get put in a poor position, you have to fight your way through cars, you lose a lot of that advantage unless you displace them quickly. Grande very much managed to do that. Halliday got a little bit more stuck in the weeds here. So as fast of a driver as they are, and I'm sure that we will have at least one more moment on this course for them to show that speed, it's not played out as favorably as one would hope.
Is it going to be the first time this season we don't see Jan Halliday finish on the podium on a race that he started? Obviously last time out he didn't, but 2 first place, 2 second place and 1 third place is his career in season 19 at the moment. And you know, is it going to end with not being on a podium this race?
Well, London's certainly going to make a bit of an issue out of that, as it looks like it went into the back and kicked the rear out from under Halliday. So a bit of a mistake there is going to cost the both of them, as Halliday's now been displaced to about half a second away from Keelan Liu, and that is going to be the real kicker. And I think you brilliantly identified this. Every single race they've started, they finished on a podium. This could be the breaking of that streak, and a breaking of a streak can sometimes mean the breaking of momentum. That momentum is so powerful in a championship fight, and as we have seen in league racing time and time again, if you have an extremely strong start, one poor result is all it takes to sometimes completely tank a championship run.
Yeah, it happens quite often. Just a little bit of break in concentration. It's something we never actually, I don't think we had a chance, unfortunately, to discuss beforehand, is what happens if Jan has a couple of bad races and then all of a sudden the advantage is on Yannick or Keanu or Keedan's foot, I guess, because Keedan is ahead of Jan at the moment. He's ahead of all of them, and he's 53 points behind Jan, but any points gained over is good points, and I think he's trying to make a move now on Tudor Presican.
Yeah, the moves are certainly being hunted down, and as the laps start to dwindle, the racing opportunities start to fade. We're noticing the clouds coming over a little bit, but I'm not reading any chance of wet weather. And to be honest, it's not enough time to make a meaningful difference. We see Halliday coming out of turn 16, has decided that now is the time to strike. They've been conserving their energy. They're going to go for the shot here. It's going to be into fourth. It's going to be side by side with Caden Liu heading into turn 3 now. Into the apex. Is going to try and get the early gun out of the corner. Little bit of a tail slide, but holds it together quite nicely. This is Halliday, as we know. They are a driver who likes to reserve themselves for moments. They're calculated, they take their time, and then when they strike, they give it everything. And we have just seen that right there. So, in the space of a couple of corners, Halliday pumped everything into that attack. It worked in their favour, and they're now on the back of Grande and Torquay. So the championship podium streak is still very much alive, and a mistake from Torquay is going to solidify that. But look at the rest of the field. They have dropped away massively all of a sudden.
It was a big incident between Leo Lund, Keedan Lund and Tudor Presican, and Yannick Schmidt is somehow in there as well. It was hairy between turn 10 and 11. I'm not 100% sure what happened, but you're mentioning Jan being calculated, and that's not for the first time this race. We saw it earlier on, and here comes Larry Tolke. And I wonder if those two now look behind and see Jan Halliday and think, just, you know what, let's work together, because he's just going to be at our throats otherwise.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to leapfrog off of each other because they don't really have much in the way of choice. That's the only way that they're going to be able to stay ahead, especially with Halliday having effectively a DRS and ERS advantage that will be able to serve off of the two of them. They're going to be setting up a bit of a pendulum at this point. They're going to trade consistently down that back straight through into 14. So all it really counts down to now is two major factors. Is Halliday going to go for a decisive move to break that formation early? And who is going to be on the winning side of that pendulum come to the end of lap 28?
Yeah, that's two questions really. We'll find out at the end of the race, I think, is the best way to describe it. Because I don't want to count Leo Lund out of this either, because they've proven time and time again in this race alone how tenacious they're going to be to finish on the podium or to finish in a great way. Tudor Pressacan, who was so solid early on, is now down to 9th place.
Yeah, and an unfortunate sort of series of events have dropped them down to barely within the points. Hopefully they'll be able to find a stable footing and at least bring something home. As you see, a little bit more shuffling with Rapasa and Pressacan going to trade a couple of blows heading into turn 14. Now looking at a bit further down, you can see the aggression very much on display. That is Pressacan taking the apex of the line, and in fact Rapasa takes a bit of a slide coming out of 14. I'm not sure whether there was any contact between them. It was tough to tell from the camera angle, but it looks like Rapasa very much being out of sorts there. And now Pressacan is going to be pushing forward into the pit, and Rapasa being our 5th retirement. Unfortunate considering the kind of work they put into that pole position. It's really gone 0 to 0 for the Ferrari, sadly.
Such a shame for Luca Rapasa, because they were doing... It was a solid job, and Leo Lund being as opportunistic as possible in the pit lane really, I think, set the downfall for Luca Rapasa, because they ended up being held up more in the pits than they were expecting, and then they just, you know, struggled a little bit to pick themselves back up and get into the swing of things, because they were looking really solid in the first stint of this race. But Ariana Grande is being absolutely hounded by Jan Halliday at the moment. This is some real tough defending required from the Kick Sauber car.
And now we are going to see the final laps start to be the setup for a final rush into 28. So at this point, it becomes, well, there's a saying I heard once that I do very much subscribe to. If you've got a 50 lap race, you have 48 laps of setup and 2 laps of racing. This is going to be very much mimicking that mindset now. We've had a lot of scuffles, we've had a lot of back and forths, but now laps 24 to 26, they're all about setup, and arguably 27 as well. But it's all going to be about getting in the right position. You can see that Halliday is going for the attack now. He's looking to break the formation of the Kick Saubers. He doesn't want them to be chaining off of each other anymore, and very much in a parallel to their previous attack that got them into 3rd. It's going to be splitting the Kick Saubers, and he's now into 2nd with Tulki being pushed behind. Leo Lund is going to be taking a bit of a fight to the Kick Sauber themselves. Is going to see where they can get a podium. Very tenacious driver, very aggressive, can sometimes get the better of them, but here we do see they are hanging it with the best of them, and an aggressive move has turned into a prolonged fight for this spot. Tulki refused to yield an inch, has to take to the outside of the course, but sweeps his way back in. He's not done with this fight yet.
Definitely not. This is really good stuff, but is it going to break the train? It's so close to breaking it, and it could be. Well, look at the cars behind. It's 4 wide coming through turn 12 and 13. That was incredible stuff from some of those drivers back there. But Larry, well, he's lost DRS. The skirmishes, I think, are over. It's full-scale war now in the battle for P3.
Yep, the play field has been set. The drivers are in positions. Now it's time to really fight. Coming into lap 26, Ariana Grande, aka Top 8, leads with Jan Halliday in a close second and 1.3 seconds adrift, fully out of the DRS and in their own bubble. Is going to be Larry Talkie, although they are quickly being usurped by Yannick Schmidt, Leo Lund. They are all going to be scuffling and fighting for those positions now. Schmidt in particular having quite the race to recover this one. Halliday is going to be taking top spot, but are they going to be able to hold it? Two major battles, two championship drives of their own, and with this round coming quickly to a close, this could decide the fate of this season, potentially for a few drivers, depending on who makes it out of here in 2 laps time.
Yeah, this isn't this is massively unfortunate for Danny Van Ruyten. He definitely didn't want to see Yannick Schmidt's name in 3rd place because the point gap gain, like you quite rightly mentioned, is just going to be too much. It's defining the season for Danny Van Ruyten. But Larry Tolke holding on. It's so much battling going on. Diego's also having a great job of going up into 6th place as well. JSD up into 8th now. Ariana Grande takes the lead of the Grand Prix, and if I were them, I would have held back a lap and gone on lap. Oh no, maybe this is perfect opportunity. Actually, I'm getting my laps mixed up. This is perfect, I think, for Ariana Grande. It's Jan Halliday that next lap. Oh my goodness!
3 seconds. They pushed it too far on the final corner. That has completely bombed any kind of strategy they would have won. I'm sorry to cut you off, but any kind of strategy is now out the window. 3-second time penalty. That is strategy done for. This would have been perfect. Halliday could have taken it on 27, and Grande, if they had just kept it a little bit more in the lines, could have got a final sweeper into 16. But no. Unfortunately, short of any kind of double warnings inquiries, which are rare and unlikely, this is race over for Grande. The best that they'll be able to get is around a P4 to P5 if my napkin commentator math is serving me well here. But Halliday, all Halliday needs to do is keep Schmidt at bay, and they will take the race.
Oh wow, that is what a series, an unfortunate
Brutal
series of mistakes for Ariana Grande there. But Jan Halliday, I mean, what could work in their favour is those two work together to pull away from that group, and then the Sauber, and that actually works in Jan's favour for the championship as well. Pull away, ensure that the Sauber gets the extra points or gets 2nd place, because Yannick is being swallowed up by the RB cars right now.
Yeah, the RB cars are certainly piling on the pressure very high. Lund is going to be the sort of leading spear. You see there is contact between himself and I believe that was Lund there. Halliday is going to be peeking alongside, dipping back, heading into lap 28, and I think they want to get this one on track as well as in the stewarding board. So we will see, of course, a final race, a final drag race into 14 come to pass. But Schmidt needs to get that movement, needs to get that breakaway if he wants a chance at that podium. At this point in time, Grande will only lose a single spot because Orzo is 2.9 seconds adrift. When you combine that with Halliday, that penalty is going to be all but nullified in terms of wider implications.
Yeah, and I think this is what Jan needed to do for the championship. Ensure these two go off in their own little race, leave the others behind, because now Schmidt has got some massive point deficit and really one hand on the title for Jan Halliday. But it's one last chance for Jan to get it on track now.
Here we go, final race into turn 14 here. You can see going extremely narrow. That's the RBs in the background, but in the foreground we see a tale as old as time. Final corners into turn 14 now. Halliday leads coming out of that one. Who's going to jump on the throttle that little bit faster? It is the Aston coming through 15, 16 and up to the line, winning the Chinese Grand Prix. It's Jan Halliday on touchable, another podium, another win, and in the end, Grande is going to retain P2 despite the penalty, owing to the pulled out gap of 3.2 seconds. Saved themselves, with Schmidt barely missing out on that P4 from Diego Zorzo. Was third, couldn't quite get that push back up. The RBs just too effective at defending on that one, and Lund taking a solid podium to round the points off. 15 finishes. Scott Holmes coming up to line in a few seconds time, but what a race through and through.
Look how close Yannick Schmidt and Diego Zorzo were, as well as JST and Tudor Peresacan. That is ridiculously close, as Marcel Biega setting the fastest lap of the race, which just to give his race a little bit of an upside. It's not been his with game issues and whatnot, but got Holmes across the line. That was a solid race tonight.
A very competitive race to the bitter end, not just on the track, but also we saw a bit of strategic upsets as well. We did see some drivers really make their way up the field, make the best out of a situation, and in the end, a few drivers going to take those crowning spots. Some of those drivers are going to be very happy with the points that they are hauling home today. There you go, standing atop that podium. It's an Aston Martin driver. It is Halliday, and it's a familiar sight. Looking at the field now, you can see the timings and the drivers who really made a stand. I've got to say, particularly impressed with some of the big gains. So Zorzo up 4 positions. That's going to be up, I believe that's 8 for Yannick Schmidt, making a P5 out of P13. Seriously impressive. But then Caden Luke making up a whole 10 positions. I think they were the biggest gain of the race.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that. It's just gone black screen for me, so I can't see the full list properly. I can just about see it on the screen share, but it's some Keelan, a great drive. Same with JST before JST, sorry, before an incident, I believe, with Tudor Peresacan as well. So interesting. Maybe a little bit too elbows out, but a good race nonetheless.
Yeah, well, drivers were certainly getting their elbows out. That much wasn't up for question, but we might see if we get any chance to chat with any of our drivers and who will be willing to join us in the commentary box for a little bit of a debrief, because China is always an interesting one. Not just on track, but also off track as well. It's a rare one to come up, so some drivers are coming in with a lot of practice and some are coming in with next to none. I mean, I'm being told, or at least seeing from some of the live chats here, that we have Zorzo coming in with P4 without practice, which is a ridiculous achievement if that is true.
Definitely. That is ridiculous. But he did get better. The way the race went on, he was sitting happy at the back, just watching things, and then in the second half of that race, it was a different Diego Zorzo.
Yeah, it really was something else. And what we will be, of course, seeing is the drivers now start to shift perspectives. Keep in mind, the standings are going to be quite affected by this, and Halliday is going to be taking another healthy dose of points with that P1 in his pocket. So this could be closing some doors, and this is where we will see that shift from the focus of P1 potentially into some of the other battles, as he could seal this up fairly early on if he's going to continue this absolutely dominant streak. I don't see any drivers who are looking to be joining us this time. I'm not seeing anyone moving into the interview box. We'll give it, of course, a couple more minutes, but how are you feeling about that race, Gareth?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's it's a good one to watch and commentate over. There was some... it was like an aggressive... I'm trying to think... An aggressive chess match, because there was so much going on for strategic purposes. You know, drivers Leo going into the pit, forcing his way around the Ferrari of Luca Rapassa in the pits. It was things like that that made the race as interesting as it was, because everyone was pushing their limits.
Yeah, and I think that sums it up quite well. As everyone was really giving it their all, and whichever way you slice it, that's all we could ever ask for. Everyone is just giving it 110%, really putting it all down on the track. And of course, while there can be a couple of dicey moments, that is going to show us some of the best racing that we will ever see and have come to see in WR thus far. But with no joiners in the commentary box, we are going to be shifting gears and looking forward. So it's not going to be a break this time. It's going to be full steam ahead. Reminder, quadruple header coming in to finish season 19 off. We've had China tonight. This time next week, we'll be having the Canadian Grand Prix, followed by Austria and Sao Paulo. I do love the Canadian track. 14 corners, of course, Wall of Champions. Can't be understated. It really is a test of mettle. Despite how visually simple it is on the surface, that particular first and final sector is deceptive. It is a little bit deceptive in terms of how difficult it can be to get right.
It certainly can, and I want Canada to be on the Canada to be on the calendar for a long time. That was more of a tongue twister than I was expecting. But that final chicane, the chicane back in 2011, I'm going to test people's memories and my own, when it was going from wet to dry, and Sebastian Vettel went off the track, and it allowed Jenson Button to from a last to first finish. Back then, and it's not, you say it's, well, you quite rightly mentioned it looks simple, but it's not. It's a lovely track. I really hope I'll be watching it next week. If I'm not anywhere near a commentary box, I'll be watching that one for sure.
Well, either way, it was lovely to have you in the commentary box, mate. And as I say, great to have you back up to the British Grand Prix and sort of hearing good things in my absence. It was amazing to be sort of alongside you. So where can people find you, if anywhere?
Console Tier 1 on a Friday night for WR, and then a Sunday night with Competitive Speed Series. So same time, 8 o'clock.
Awesome. And today, of course, great shout out to all the drivers. Thank you, everyone who has been watching and continues to support us throughout the season, as well as the likes of Gridfinder, Next Level Racing, making sure that we can do what we do here at WOR. But for us tonight, from both of us in the commentary box and for us in PC Tier 2, we hope you have a great evening. We will see you at the same time next week for the Canadian Grand Prix and for round 8 of the season, where we may see a championship wrap up, or we may see a new storyline start to unfold. Either way, catch us next week. We'll see you all later. Goodbye for now.